historians. Got a quote from one from Iowa City up there at the top. One of the great legacies was granting citizenship, but remember this. It says that you cannot deny the vote on the basis of race in that amendment. It does not say you can deny the vote on the basis of literacy tests or on the basis of grandfather clauses. And for 10 years after the war, it's called Reconstruction, the South will become the most democratic it had ever been. Most democratic it had ever been. South Carolina, when the war started, all right, will elect a majority of state legislators who are black. It had the highest percentage of slaves before the war. What an irony. All of that will disappear in 1876 in a corrupt election. They'll withdraw the federal troops, and Jim Crow laws come back, and the KKK comes back, and they start taking away the votes that African Americans had with these, quote, literacy tests. I used to give a Southern literacy test to incoming graduate students at Iowa State. 25 questions. Explain the rule of cloture and how it is to be invoked in the U.S. Senate, all right? That's one of the questions on there, all right? You guys all just flunked. Seriously. Or you can vote, but if your grandparents didn't vote, then you can't vote. We're not denying it on the basis of race. Of course they are, all right? There were lots of gimmicks like that, and a lot of former slaves became sharecroppers. Debt peonage. What was the Sally Field movie, Places of the Heart, years and years ago? And Sally Field is a young mom with a couple little kids, and her husband's a deputy sheriff or something. He gets shot at the beginning of the movie. And, you know, she's got a small farm, and she doesn't want to give it up. And Danny Glover comes by. He's an itinerant, you know, looking for work. And he offers to help her out, living in a chicken coop. She's afraid of hiring a black man, all right? Well, he stays there and helps her get that crop, okay? And there's a really touching scene. She finally feels really good. She's got a cotton crop. The same guy that owns, you know, we have to weigh your crop, owns the store, implement store, and a grocery store right next door. And one of her kids asked him to buy some candy. I think the little girl asked to buy a dress or something. Mom says yes. And then he adds up the bill. She needs seed for the next season and so on. And the bill exceeds what she just got paid. All right? It's called debt peonage. You never get out of debt. That's what replaced slavery. Sharecropping, similarly. Okay? Alexander Clark, mentioned again. Go ahead. They talk about Alexander Clark and his daughter Susan integrating the schools. And, all right. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. First black from Iowa Wesleyan tragically closed its doors this year. Iowa's oldest university or college. And, all right. And there is Alexander Clark. All right. The Grand Review of the Army, down obviously the streets of Washington, D.C. The guy who tried to steal the whole show was George Armstrong Custer. Custer's on a white horse doing wheelies and everything else in front of the reviewing stand. But it was a grand show. It went on for hours and hours and hours. And, all right. The GAR, when the war is over, the Republicans run their first presidential candidate, John Fremont, in 1856. He loses. Lincoln wins in 1860. The U.S. and Iowa become solidly Republican for years. The only governor who's not a Republican is Horace Boyce in 1889 and 1891, and it wasn't party that he won with, it was booze, prohibition, okay? And then it's solid Republican again until we get to the FDR years, okay? Jonathan Delaware, the park up here at Fort Dodge is named after Delaware. He once said that Iowa will go Democrat when hell goes Methodist. Okay? That's how Republican we've become. Iowa historically has gone back and forth. We've been slightly blue, we've been slightly red, we've been purple, we're more red today, but we have a history of being a pretty competitive two-party state. I wish it was that way today, okay? And that I think, again, we're too polarized. I always define for my students that politics is the art of the possible, or politics is, basically, compromise, the art of compromise. And we've gotten too far away from that. So anyway, all right. The GAR was the early equivalent of the American Legion or whatever, but they were very political. And they actually have offices in the state capitol. And so they weren't subtle about lobbying for legislation after the Civil War. And there was no opposition party. So, you know, it was pretty solidly Republican. All right. That's Sydney, Iowa's post flag. All right. And then a little bit on the right. Some of that's dated. You've got some references for sites connected. I don't know if Wamona does their Civil War days anymore. A lot of those, you know, the older guys that were involved with, what's the book by Horowitz? It's called Rebels in the Attic or something like that. But a lot of the reactors, our membership, we've got about 75 members in the Des Moines Roundtable, but mostly retirees. It's open to women. We have a number of women. We have couples that are part of the roundtable, but it's hard to attract young people. And you know, like I said, I've been a member for 26 years, and I line up all the speakers, and I purposely have programs on diet during the Civil War, sports during the Civil War, music during the Civil War. We just had the chair of the history department at Grinnell, Sarah Purcell, did a great program for us just last week, and I try to get as many women speakers as I can. If the roundtables are going to survive, they've got to recruit younger people. And I think it's the same thing with historical societies. It's hard to recruit younger people and then to get involved. So go back to my early cartoon about we don't need history anymore. All right. I think that's it. I ran a little bit long, but we got through it. The computer worked. Thank you all for being with us. If you'd like to take a question or two, if you have to leave, feel free.
Is Sherman buried in Des Moines?
Yeah, some of the Shermans are buried in Des Moines. White Sherman Place is his brother, okay? And General Sherman did come to Des Moines, but he's not buried there. Not General. No.
John Stevenson's the young man's name, and his father's Lockwood, who is from Rudd, Iowa. I worked in his funeral service, and he was visitation.
The answers are all out here.
Let me just interrupt to say, because people are leaving, if you want to take any cookies, please take cookies. It's Sunday night and we're not going to want to have cookies left over.
Unhealthy breakfast.
Please, if you're on your way out, take some cookies to go.
You captured John Brown. Colonel,
Already leaving? Yeah.
Let's go on.
Yeah, no, it's true. We're fighting for the union.
Good. So many meetings there as a relative are visiting.